yes, there will be riots likely in major cities. Yes, the US is going to lose its dominance in the world.
Okay, so I'm here with the Resource Times, and I'm fortunate to be able to interview Daniel Ameduri of Future Money Trends. If you've seen an economic video, a viral video on the internet, chances are he made it. He's a self-made millionaire. He's inspired me in so many ways. Daniel, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks very much.
Daniel, when I first started watching your videos and just learning about the economy, the videos were done in a certain way. And I've seen you evolve over time. And can you talk a little bit about that and just what your opinion is on the economy right now?
Well, the goal with the videos has always been to educate people. But what we noticed is with our YouTube statistics that people didn't want to watch like a 30-minute or 50-minute documentary that was just a dumping of facts. So what we did was we kind of gave them the theatrical music, we gave the hard facts, and we made it more like watching a movie trailer, and it was exciting. People liked it. People were able to share with their family, and I think we were able to reach a lot more people by doing this. So, you know, people were able to learn more about hard assets, more about the national debt. And you asked me, what do I think about the economy right now? Look, in 2008, I think that was just the beginning. That was scratching the surface of what's to come. That was kind of like the truth was almost revealed, and within the next 5, not later than 10 years, I think the truth is going to come out, and it's fraudonomics, and everything is built on fraud and manipulation. And I think once this thing hits and once it comes out and the US dollar loses its reserve status, or at least there's a change in our global currency system, I think Americans are in for a huge shock. Yeah. Because most people, it's such a luxury, the life we have in the United States. And I think we're going to live more like a South American country where there's not much of a middle class, and we become a resource economy.
You have credibility because you were one of the few people that actually called the Dow Jones and crashing in 2008. Nobody was talking about that, and you know, you're talking about a real devastating situation going forward. You know, we don't hear a lot of this stuff in the mainstream media, and you talk to a lot of alternative, you know, heads and economic experts out there, and what are they saying? I mean, I'm talking about Rick Rule, Doug Casey, and people in this arena that, you know, aren't necessarily like gonna be in the limelight on your CNBC because of the things that they're actually saying.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I've been blessed to be able to talk to some billionaires, some very successful people who came from nothing, and they honestly built great businesses, and they've helped a lot of other people create a lot of wealth, like Rick Rule. As far as what they're saying, I mean, look, they see the big picture. I mean, obviously no one wants to see it collapse. We all want to see the truth come out, but nobody wants to see a complete disaster. I know when it comes to investing, Rick Rule, Marin Katusa, and a gentleman I just spoke to the other day, Greg McCoach, I've never seen these guys more excited. These guys are more excited about investing right now than they ever have been, because the bear market in the resource stocks has been severe. And if you look at the resource wars, like the Iraq war, where the US went in to basically control Iraq's oil, or what Russia just did in Ukraine, these are the resource wars kind of playing themselves out, and this is going to intensify. And so owning good resource stocks, you know, I talked to Greg McCoach. He's investing in companies, and this guy has 18 10-baggers, and 2 of them were last year in one of the worst bear markets for the gold stocks. And here's Greg. He's so excited because he's not only buying a company that was basically taken over by new management, but this company, which it's the Stakeholder Gold, they are buying and getting contracts of properties that have had millions of dollars poured in them, yet they were left for dead because of the bear market. Yeah. So now all the hard work's done. All they have to do is drill, and they'll either find a major discovery or they won't. But they know where to drill, they know where there's anomalies in the ground because millions have already been poured into the projects.
And this isn't even an inflation aspect to it. I mean, we were just talking about the economy and how bad things are, but you're talking about the actual economics of the company. And so it's two-sided essentially.
Yeah, no, I always looked at the inflation as the icing on the cake. You want to find, it's very simple. It's the Graham-Dodd philosophy. You buy dollars for 50 cents. Just keep doing that. Just keep buying $1 bills for 50 cents and you're going to make money. And that's exactly what's going on with a lot of these resource stocks right now, especially the junior mining industry, where there's a lot of companies trading for less than the earth they own, less than the tractors, the mining equipment. The metal itself isn't even selling for what they can make a profit on.
So investing in inevitability.
Yeah.
Are you personally buying this?
Yeah, I mean, I own a few junior miners. As far as the one mentioned, Stakeholder Gold, I will present it to my newsletter first, and then I allow myself and my staff to purchase and accumulate shares. You know, I think right now it's around 20 cents. You can see a lot of activity because people are going into it. But you know, stocks like these, they can be easily 10 baggers once they start drilling, and that's the cool thing, because the 1 to 2 years of promotional financing and finding where to drill, that's done. So these are now turnkey gold exploration companies, turnkey producers in that arena. So I buy a few, but I'm very extreme when I buy them. You got to partner with the right people.
So do you see the junior mining sector thriving if the rest of the economy goes down the drain?
Well, if the U.S. economy goes down the drain, you'll have to consider that the rest of the world still needs these goods. And if this is a monetary event we're talking about, where the Federal Reserve is losing control of the interest rates, or Russia or somebody has done something to shock the currency markets, the gold and silver companies, platinum and palladium companies, those could soar. So could the oil companies. Because if it's a monetary event, this is beyond supply and demand. This is now about protection. And look, here's the deal. This is why the mining stocks are going to rally huge when there is a monetary event. If you're a billionaire or 100 millionaire, you're not going to buy a bunch of physical bullion and have it delivered. You're not going to send your money. Maybe you'll do some of that, but it's not going to be where the easy liquidity that you'll have available to you. What you'll have available to you is buying a company that controls these assets. And that's what the rich will do. And that's why people who are buying at these lows, where these companies have been just torn to shreds, they have a huge opportunity, because, look, regardless, if the economy does well, they're going to make money because the demand for these resources will go up. If the economy does poorly and the U.S. goes into some type of monetary crisis, these things are going to be dramatically risen, because people will be looking for value. They're going to get rid of their dollars, just like Warren Buffett buys railroad tracks or railroad companies. He's getting rid of those dollars and he's buying hard assets.
I like your optimism, because even though you see the negative, you see what can potentially happen, you're optimistic about your future because you're acting now. And say that you know the economy is going to collapse. It is imminent. What is the first thing that you'll do? And then within 2 weeks, what is the currency going to be?
The first thing I would do, and I've given this a lot of thought, because it's like, you know, what if something happened? You know, hopefully, number one, that I'm at home. But I would probably go for kids' supplies. And what I mean is, since I'm about to have an infant any day, probably baby wipes, probably some type of lotion, or I guess I already have that stuff. But, you know, I have a lot of this stuff, but I would just want to have more, as much as I could. And of course, you know, last minute food, fresh foods. You might be the last time you're getting apples for a few weeks or months, depending on how bad it is. So the second part of the question was, what's the currency in 2 weeks in the United States? Okay, so this is a tough one. If it gets really bad, the currency in some cities could be sex, alcohol, tobacco, food, certainly, water, certainly. In the general sense, what will the government do? The government will have to come out with a new currency. I don't think the free market is going to supply the new currency, only because I don't think the government's going to let it.
Do you see that as an immediate change, or because eventually it'd probably go to hard assets?
I think the wild card in this whole thing is, on the eve of a dollar collapse, does the Federal Reserve come out and back the U.S. dollar with oil, natural gas, or precious metals? I don't think precious metals is an option at this point because I don't think the gold's there. Yeah. Look, we've all seen German tried to get a very small amount of gold relative to how much gold is on the move constantly on an annual basis, especially if you look at what China's importing. Relative basis, Germany wants a small amount of gold back. They want to take 7 years to do it, and then they default on the first half of the year what they said they were going to deliver. So hard assets, I find that hard to believe that that's going to be the currency of choice
like
of the
market.
criminals.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure, silver will be used, ammunition, bullets, and again, the collapse could be on so many levels. The worst case scenario would be where there's like a complete breakdown, and that wouldn't probably come from an economic collapse. That would probably be more like somebody striking at our energy, our utility system in the United States, so, or an EMP. But you know, there was this thing in California about a year ago where professionals, they came in with AK-47s and shot up a transformer or actually like an energy station for California Edison. And no fingerprints on the ammo or anything like that. So we don't know what their ultimate motive was. They never got captured.
Yeah.
But what if they did this in multiple locations? So I think if we had a lack of power in major cities and all of a sudden, you know, the millions of people in Los Angeles aren't able to feed their children or to turn their stove on, that's when you have a major crisis. And will this last for 2 or 3 weeks? That's very possible. Will it last for months? Much less likely, unless we're talking about a global event, and that would be getting into something like a solar flare. But if it was a solar flare, that's rough to even say there would be a new currency because you'd have so many nuclear power plants going into meltdown.
Is it in the government's interest for the people to be impoverished? And do you think that they're potentially behind the collapse?
I think there is, it's definitely in their interest for us not to be smart, well thought out thinkers out there, because then you're a libertarian and an anarchist, and that's the last thing they want. They want you to feel good about the government pointing a gun at somebody else's head, taking their money, taking their stuff, and redistributing it to everybody else, including buying bombs to murder people off our shore. So is it their goal for us to be impoverished? Probably not too much. They don't want us to be too poor to where we have revolution, but they also don't want us to be too wealthy and smart to where there's a revolution or the realization that we don't need the government. We don't need the bureaucrats regulating our daily activities.
So you wrote an article recently about the 10 ways that you can thrive, or
the 10 actions to make you rich. I'm very optimistic, but I have to admit I'm very realistic. So there could be, when this shock happens, I definitely see a situation where there could be rioting in the streets. So I don't ever, even though I want people to thrive, I think the first thing we do is we prepare. Yeah. And I'm big on telling people you prepare for the worst, but then you've got to look at the next 20, 30 years, because
so this is thriving though, right?
Absolutely, yeah, because I mean, you don't want to just plan for Katrina.
Right.
You want to plan for Katrina and how you're going to live through an event like that. You know, for years I identified with being a doomsday prepper, and I would bet everyone in my life would call me a doomsday prepper because of what I've done, and I probably would still consider myself a doomsday prepper. But the thing is, you don't want to get stuck on it. We're going into the Depression. The U.S. is going to change dramatically how we make our money, how we save for later in life, how we teach our children. It's all going to change. I don't want to wait for it to change. No. I'm changing now, and then, you know, and I want to help people change now, and that's a big thing. So I feel like, everybody has this awakening. I don't know, it's different for everybody. And, once you kind of swim out of the river and you're prepared, your goal and objective should be to bring as many people with you as many people as you can. I always say to people I work with that a rising tide lifts all boats. And, as I've made all these economic videos and spoken to so many people, it's got to be more than just preparing for the worst and being stuck in that state. Yeah. Yes, there will be riots likely in major cities. Yes, the U.S. is going to lose its dominance in the world. But the new economy that's out there, it's you got to choose your own destiny. You have to choose what you're going to do with your life for the next 20 years.
Well, that's a perfect lead into the first one.
Okay.
The first one you have a plan.
Yeah, you always have to have a plan. When I was young, I had like a 30-year plan on how I was going to get wealthy, and that was kind of almost like the worst case scenario. That's pretty much the plan that everybody has. And then a 15-year plan and a 5-year plan. I got lucky. When in my 20s, I kind of made some money and then I lost it all. But then on the second round, when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I was very blessed that things just worked out. And so you work on things that you enjoy doing, and that's what I did. And you kind of just got to ignore all the stuff that people are telling you to have a career, or the expectations people have of you, like going to college, or getting a certain degree, like becoming a doctor or dentist or a lawyer. Look, there's lots of ways to make money, plenty of ways. In fact, on our site, we have extra income ideas on our Smart Money membership. There are so many ways to make money, and all you have to do is plan it out and then do it.
Well, I really identify with this next one, and maybe you could talk about it a little bit, but become a compulsive saver. Yeah,
my wife and I, we are compulsive savers. When we were young, we would save at least 25% of our income. As our income grew, that grew actually.
Yeah.
Rather than spend more money, we started to save 75%. I think there was one year we probably saved 90%, probably in 2012, probably saved 90% of our income.
Yeah.
So you become a compulsive, relentless saver. And I kind of divided up in between saving in like physical hard assets that you cannot lose, and I mean like the value won't disappear, and then cash flowing, hard assets preferably, or something that will compound your wealth.
Can you encourage maybe some people who don't have a lot of money to save, and they don't see the value of actually saving because they don't feel like they make enough? They don't feel like what they do now is actually going to make a difference down the line.
It will. Even if you look at somebody who only saves like $2,000 a year, if they just did that for 7 years and then it compounded over 30 years, they'll have like upwards of $800,000.
Yeah.
Saving 10%, you can live off the 90. I wrote another article a few months ago about 10 ways to really save money. And people didn't like the ideas, but it was like, get rid of your pet, cancel the cable bill. There are ways you can save more.
Yeah.
And of course, there are also ways you can make more money too.
And being a compulsive saver probably is what potentially made you a better business person. I mean, it sets you up to be a good business person and to thrive in that way. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, my business has never been in debt. No. We don't even have a credit card.
All right, well, the next one on this list is focus on investments that cash flow.
What do you
do to that?
Okay, so you have your savings, which could be financial insurance, like gold and silver. You have your speculations, which are like the junior miners, like we just talked about. And then you have your investments, and that's where 90 to 95% of your wealth should be, really. It should be in investments, and investments are businesses that cash flow, that actually pay you a dividend, a yield. You make money from them, and that's huge. Too many people put all their money in speculation, or they put all their money in just hoping for capital appreciation. Look, when I buy a rental property and the tenant is paying $1,000 a month, let's say, I don't care if the property goes up or down or sideways. It doesn't really matter. And I'll give you a real life example. I had a duplex in Tennessee that was at about $120,000 in the 2008 crisis. It went down to about $70,000. However, throughout the crisis, from beginning, during, and after the 2008 crisis, the tenant paid about $1,100 combined. And I never even considered selling it. It didn't matter because it was about cash flow. And if you just keep buying things that make you more money, eventually you'll be rich.
All right, so the next question, and I guess this kind of goes into what we were talking about with the junior mining sector, real estate, kind of everything, but it's buying at the right price. What does that mean to you?
You cannot get excited when a chart goes up. If a chart's going up, it should not make you excited. When a chart goes down, it should get your interest. And so buying at the right price, it's easy to do this when you go to the grocery store or if you go clothes shopping, because it sits there and says 50% off sale. Or you go to the grocery store and maybe you're familiar with Apples or Hamburger Helper, just pick something.
Yeah.
And then one day you go to the grocery store and you see that, you know, it's a 2-for-1 deal. So you buy, so you load up. Or if you're like me and you're a doomsday prepper, you really load up. You know, my wife was at Costco today, the Mark West wine, Pinot Noir. It's usually like $12. She saw it for $6. I was like,
load up.
Buy 20 of them. So she's 9 months pregnant, so I couldn't have her carry too much. But so anyway, that's easy for us to understand. But for some reason, when we start talking about investments, we completely leave that knowledge and experience and education behind. It's the same thing. That's mainly what I mean with buy at the right price. Not only in consumer goods, but especially investments. You buy at the right price. You be patient.
Yeah.
And when you see a good deal, you go big.
Go big. All right. Well, this next one is treat debt as your arch enemy.
Yeah,
and you probably already touched on it a little bit, but I mean, go ahead.
I think debt should be, you should treat it as your arch enemy. You know, Book of Proverbs says the borrower is servant to the lender, and that is so true. Too many Americans, we're all conditioned that it's normal to get a car loan. It's normal to get a 3-decade loan when you get a house. It's normal to have some credit cards. It's normal to borrow money to go to college. It's normal to finance jewelry when you go to the jewelry store.
Yeah.
The other day, you know, my wife and I, we don't buy each other a lot of stuff like that, but I did want to buy her a gift. And I went to the jewelry store, and 3 times they kept they're like, you need to fill out this application. And I was like, well, can't I just buy it? And they're like, yeah, you can just buy it, but it's no interest for like 3 years or whatever. I'm like, no, I just want to buy it. I just want to be done with this.
Yeah.
So with the exception of borrowing money to buy an asset that will pay the debt plus give you return on your money, otherwise you shouldn't be getting into debt. I think you know, when it comes to the own versus rent, a lot of people don't consider when you own a home, you have maintenance, you have mandatory taxes every year, you are stuck. You may have to vacation because you're not living where you want to live. Well, you might be able to rent where you want to rent. So you got to weigh out all the costs, but I highly recommend people just avoid debt. Don't do it.
Yeah, so you don't consider yourself as extreme as Dave Ramsey. He would say don't even finance a business. I mean, you're talking about, you know, financing a rental home. I mean,
I think Dave Ramsey does a disservice to everybody. Dave Ramsey is making probably, I don't know, I'm going to guess. Let's say he's making $1 million a month, at least, probably, right? Mm-hmm. Dave Ramsey tells everybody how he buys houses free and clear. That's the only way he does it. Well, look, for the average person who's making $30,000 to, let's say, $50,000 a year, that's not realistic. They will never get to buy a rental property.
Yeah.
You know, they're far better off saving the 20%. Let's say it's a $50,000 house in Toledo, or Memphis, Tennessee. You know, they could come up with $5,000, that's 10%, or $10,000, that's 20%, and now the tenant is giving them a return on that money, which is cash flow. Yep, and then they also control a hard asset, that is made up of all kinds of commodities and manual labor.
A hedge against inflation.
An absolute hedge against inflation, and you're actually shorting the dollar because you're getting a loan against that at a low, artificially low interest rate right now.
This next one you have on the list is probably not one that a lot of people talk about, but it's invest in your relationships. What do you have to say about that?
This is huge for anybody preparing for the worst case scenario, because your relationships in your life are your best investments, and too many people blow them off, or especially with like Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff. You gotta have 500 friends, or, you know, there's a funny song out right now where this girl, she considers taking down her post because it only has 6 likes or something in the first 5 minutes. Look, real relationships, a core group of people, maybe 5, maybe 10, you know, first and foremost, to go through the next 10, 20, 30 years, people you can rely on, people you can trust. You know, in life, you're going to want to invest in those. You know, I have a son and a daughter and another daughter on the way. I want people in my life that I'm so close with that if anything ever happened to me, I know for certain that those people would reach out to my children and teach them the principles and values that I hold dear. And investing in your relationships and businesses, you should invest with the right people, and you should do business with people that you enjoy and people you plan on doing business with for 3-4 decades.
This next one is educate yourself.
This is huge. So I've always despised conventional education since I was like 16 years old, and I think that's a big thing with the internet. I think it's a lot easier to educate yourself. but you have to educate yourself in finance. You have to educate yourself on what your life philosophy is going to be. You know, the principles you want to teach your kids, and or just things you want to live by. But certainly right now in today's time, I would say the biggest thing people can educate themselves on is that the government is not your friend. The government, maybe it's not your enemy, it's definitely not your friend. And I think too many of us are raised to have this nationalism, especially as sons of the empire. And if you educate yourself, you will realize that you are a sovereign individual. You can't trust these criminals, these sociopaths who run our government. And you will be more prepared than everyone you probably know, at least everyone in your neighborhood, because especially when you consider what's coming down the pipe. You know, if there is shortages at grocery stores or shortages at the fuel tank, everyone's going to be caught off guard. You know, people always ask me, how much silver should I own? How much gold should I own? Well, considering that everyone else won't own any, even if you had 100 ounces of silver, you're better off than 99% of the population.
Yeah, it blows my mind that conventional education is actually going up, while education in general is becoming more and more available. It's free, essentially.
It really is.
Anything you want to look for is pretty much there, right on the internet. In fact, I can just look at my phone right now if I wanted to find out instantly what the capital of a certain country is. And yet, college education is just going through the roof, and I think you touched on it, and you said it. People need to be thinking out of the box.
Yeah, creative destruction. I mean, when you think about education, it's already destroyed the poor guy who was selling encyclopedias, and the internet's next target is conventional colleges, because there's no reason to spend 80 to 125 grand for these educations when you can get the same thing on the internet. Or, I mean, for a lot of people, especially nowadays where the college degree really isn't helping you, find somebody who is in the industry you want to be in and tell them you'll work for them for free. You know, especially if you have good work ethics and you're likable, who wouldn't want to have somebody help them out for free?
Well, and that's a whole nother topic, but I mean, as the minimum wage goes up, the more people do have to work for free to get those educations. But we'll move on from there. This next one is definitely against the American lifestyle. It's a consumerism. People are conditioned to want to have what their neighbor has, to want to live like they see people on TV live. But it says here to live below your means.
It's huge. Luckily, my wife was totally on board, but it really does have to be a family decision. And I would say the single biggest mistake most Americans make, especially going into this depression, is upgrading that house, is moving every 3 to 5 years. Like, you know, I know 50 and 60 year olds who are buying houses with 3-decade loans. I mean, what's the point? You might as well just rent. Once I let this helicopter pass us, it's the government, it's the NSA. So, you know, is moving, and that's a huge expense. It's a huge housing expense. Is driving too nice of a car. You know, if you make $40,000-$50,000 a year and you're buying a $25,000 car, you're making a big mistake. Live below your means and build a better you. Whether that means investing just in yourself and your own education, or just enjoying life. Why work 10 to 12 hours a day? You only have a roughly 28,000 days when you take your life expectancy in the U.S. Enjoy your days. Wouldn't you want to work and be more leisure about your life? Maybe have some wine rather than have a huge mortgage payment?
People care about what other people think. And I think that's a big reason why people can't do this. They have to show that things are okay. They have to show that they rank up until against their neighbor. I mean, I remember as a kid, you know, working jobs that were low-end jobs, minimum wage, and, you know, cleaning. I was cleaning. And I think people just, they worry too much about what other people are doing, and they don't live below their means. So
they don't, and no one cares what you drive. Maybe for the first 30 seconds you get kind of a high, like, oh, look at my new car, but then it's done, and now you're stuck with a $900 mortgage payment and the insurance and the gas. Look, I've saved and done very well, and I'm not embarrassed at all to say that one of my vehicles is built in 2003, the other one is 2011. And sure, I don't have as nice of a car as maybe some of my much poorer friends, but I feel comfortable. I get to hang out with my kids every day, and certainly if and when there is an economic collapse and a crisis in this country, I will have had the money to purchase solar panels, so I'm energy independent, extra food storage, you know, ammunition and guns.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care about a Mercedes. I care about sustainability.
Yeah. Well, you're a leader. You don't care about what other people think. You're going to do what you're going to do, and that's noble and it's inspirational.
Thanks.
And this last one, this one's thriving. Compound your wealth. And again, we talked about cash flow, we talked about different investments, but just the value of being able to compound your wealth. And I think that goes by people realizing that even with a regular income, they can save and they can be wealthy over time.
Yeah, compounding your wealth. I think it was Albert Einstein that said it was the 8th wonder of the world, and he also said that those who understand interest earn it; those who don't pay it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. Getting a return on your money, a safe return. You know, Future Money Trends, we have a true hedge strategy. It's actually, you know, to protect you from inflation, deflation, going over the next 10, 20 years, and it's all about compounding and educating people on. You know, you keep one part for yourself, just as the richest man in Babylon story, and then with that, you want to keep those dollars working or whatever, you know, your wealth growing. So growing your wealth without doing anything, passive income, and it can be done even in times like this. There are plenty of hard assets. There's farmland. Think about all the people who have farmland. That's a hard asset. Residential real estate, it's a hard asset. There's so many hard assets out there, and you want to own real things. You want to get out of the paper currency, own real things, you know, if you can, your own business, and keep that cash flow building up.
Well, I mean, it was a great talking to you and having this chat. If you want more information and to learn more about Daniel and his newsletter, visit futuremoneytrends.com.
Thanks, sir.